Hi,
Hey.
I'm Chip, and this is my beautiful wife, Kathy. And we just felt like it would be a great time to share a little bit about an amazing testimony of God's goodness and how He can bail each one of us out of the most dire circumstances. So, I'm going to share a story about what happened back in November of 2017. I was on the seventh trip of to Africa for the year. I was very tired, and I was in the last country before coming home. I was meeting with some people. We were sitting around talking, and I was interviewing them. And suddenly, I had a headache like I've never had before. My headache hurt so much that I stopped the meeting and said we need to take a break. I didn't tell anybody, and in the break I texted my wife Kathy. I said, honey, I've got a headache like I've never had before. She didn't know what was going on. It was about Thanksgiving time. She was visiting her mom, and she wrote back and said, you've got to be very tired. You've been gone a month. You need to go to your room and take a nap and drink plenty of water. And we started the meeting again after the break. I was too weak and my head was hurting too much to even text her back. I interviewed one, maybe two other people, and I had to stop the meeting. I said, hey guys, we got to stop. You need to pray for me. And immediately, all of my friends, they gathered around me and they started praying African style around me. And I went upstairs, got sick, and the last picture I have in my mind of what happened was two friends of mine, Paul Bakilla and Tony Foley, praying for me in my room while I was laying in the bed. That's the last picture I had of what happened to me. The next thing I remember was wondering, where am I? And I'm going to let Kathy share a little bit about that.
So what happened after Chip had a headache? His friend called me to tell me that Chip was very sick and they weren't sure what was wrong. And after a few different options, we decided he needed to go to the hospital. So the next morning, they took him to a place where he had an MRI, and it indicated that he had bleeding in the brain. But you would normally not have that unless you had been hit over the head, but he was not hit. And so we recommended that they take him to the best hospital in that city, which they did. And for the first few days, we had no idea what was really wrong with him. We were suspecting it was a stroke. He was almost normal for the first few days, talking on the phone and things. But I was trying to figure out what was going on at the same time as the doctors were. And finally, we decided to go ahead and have him life-flighted back to the U.S. So I spent about 5 days orchestrating all the details that had to happen in order to get him home on a jet with a medical team. And as the week went on, he became more and more confused and disoriented. I'm not really sure what took place in that hospital as far as the medical treatment. Their medical system isn't quite as advanced as Americans. So we were able to get him on a flight home about 5 days after the initial injury. And he arrived in Tulsa. And when I first saw him in the hospital after that, he had deteriorated a whole lot. And he was just in a very confused state. He doesn't even remember greeting me. And I was very concerned at that point. And The doctors weren't sure what was wrong. They thought he might have spinal meningitis, dengue fever, other things, all these African diseases they were testing him for. But they put him in ICU, and we spent the next 3 weeks in critical unit watching his progress, trying to decipher what was wrong. They did several spinal taps. The doctors were most concerned about his mental state, because every time they asked him where he was, he said a different city. He didn't know how he got from Africa to Tulsa. And so he was just very confused. He really doesn't remember anything that happened during those 3 weeks. And then after being released from ICU, he was moved to a rehab center for a week. And finally, right before Christmas, we were able to come home and have Christmas here with our family. And I think that the next 3 to 6 months were just filled with therapy appointments, physical therapy, occupational doctor's appointments, heart doctors, eye doctors. There were a lot of speech therapy. There were a lot of different components to help him get back to normal. He had to learn how to write again, how to speak, how to eat, how to walk. Everything that we take for granted, he had to learn all over again. But he gradually got better and better, and we just kept doing one day at a time, and the Lord was good. And one of the main things that was happening during this whole event was people all over the world were praying for him. Our friends were so gracious to bring us meals and help us through all of the daily life, but the prayers of the saints around the world are really what got me through it and got Chip through it. And we had several pastors come to the hospital and pray over him, and I believe that was really a turning point, because it was determined that he had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in his brain. And normally 1/3 of the people that have those die from it. 1/3 of them recover, but they aren't ever normal again, and 1/3 of them fully recover. And we're so grateful that Chip fully recovered after a year or two, where he was just back to normal, able to travel again. And we just started having him go on trips a little bit at a time. The first year, 1 trip. The second year, 2 trips. And then the next year, he went on 1 trip, and COVID shut down the world. So he's ready to go again. He's been back this year once, and we're just so thankful for a full recovery. He was determined to not let this injury stop him from doing what God has called him to do. So we're very grateful.
Like Kathy said, this was the 7th trip that I had taken in 2017 to Africa, most of them at least a month long. So I was very tired, and it was the last country. It was about maybe 10 days or a week before I went home when this happened. And I can remember I was in Ghana beforehand, flying there, and I said, Lord, just get me home. I'm tired. The next thing I remember was being in a room, a hospital, hearing my children, my girls' voices talking behind me. And I was wondering, where am I? And it took me about 15 minutes to recognize what was going on. During those days, though, I can remember praying to the Lord and saying, Lord, why didn't you take me home? I was actually a little bit upset. I knew the Lord would take care of my family, take care of Kathy, take care of the kids. I know my wife doesn't like to hear this, but it is better to be present with the Lord, and I so wanted to be with Him, and somehow instinctively I knew I had a long road to hoe. It took me a year and 10 months until I realized I was fully recovered. That's a long time. God has been good every step of the way. I asked the Lord, I don't understand. If people have a stroke, you're supposed to get treatment within 24 hours or you're going to basically have serious side effects for the rest of your life. And yet, I'm able to function. At first, I couldn't carry a cup of coffee, couldn't type, could barely talk, but I learned how to do that, even walk. I learned how to do all that again. But I found out later through my daughter, who was in a neurology class for physical therapy, and she said, "Dad, I found out why you're okay. If you had had a subarachnoid hemorrhage here, chances are you would be dead, because the standard protocol treatment is to give you blood thinner so that the blood can get to the blocked part of the brain. But the blood was hemorrhaging through my brain into my cranial cavity. So she said that would have basically made it even worse. The Lord knew what He was doing. He was looking out after me. I thank God that I was in Africa for 6 days when this happened, actually.
It truly was a miracle what we went through. And I want to say that if you're going through something hard, you may not see the end, because we didn't know how long this would go on, if there would be an end to it, if life would return to normal. And that was a scary feeling. And maybe you're going through something where you don't see the end. And I just want to encourage you, because the Lord holds our future, and He wants you to trust Him and believe that it's going to be okay. And once again, for those of you who know the story, we cannot thank you enough for your prayers and your love. And I think going through all of that, I was just in a state of shock for days. I could hardly even pray myself, but I knew other people praying for me was holding us up and our family. And it really brought our family closer together. In life, we're not guaranteed an easy road. So if you go through something, reach out for help, ask for prayer, and the Lord will be there for you.
I was walking up the stairs one day, and I said, "Hey, I don't even have to hang on to the handrail to climb the stairs anymore." Then I knew I'm good to go. So where I am now is healed, whole. And I know Jesus is my Savior. And I know that He can do abundantly above and beyond all that I or anybody else can ask or think. We are His sheep. He's the Good Shepherd. And so let's listen to Him. And He will lead us into green pastures. It may be a rough road getting to the green pastures. Might have to go up inclines and down inclines and bluffs on either side. But there's a green pasture waiting for you. So I just want you to keep looking forward. I asked the Lord, why did you raise me up? Why didn't you take me home? And I just assumed, I didn't hear anything, I just assumed, well, must have more work to do here, which is true. But it was about 6 months later, I was in a church service, and the Holy Spirit spoke directly to me and said, the reason I raised you up and healed you is because I love you. And I just cried the rest of the service. And I want you to know, no matter what you're going through, it's not based on what you do, whether the Lord's going to heal you or whatever. He loves you. Receive His love. Receive His power, His healing love to make you whole. He made me whole. He'll make you whole. He is no respecter of persons. Just trust Him. He loves you. God bless you.